This time on the 50th episode of the Highland Woodworker.
I always say that this place now is what little Anne dreamed of.
Anne of all trades invites us to her Tennessee farm, garden, future woodworking shop, and school. We'll spend a moment with this social media woodworking star.
With a pair of wooden hand screws, you can turn pretty much any flat surface into a workbench.
Andrew Zoellner shows us the multiple uses of wooden hand screws in a gripping installment of Popular Woodworking magazine's tips, tricks, and techniques. These stories and more this time on the Highland Woodworker. Hello, I'm Charles Brock and I'm a Highland Woodworker. Welcome to our 50th episode. Through the years, we have enjoyed getting to meet and being inspired by so many woodworking icons, even an American president. From the visionaries of the craft to an incredible master craftsman without vision, it's been a pleasure producing each and every episode of the Highland Woodworker. And it's our intention to keep bringing you those stories of those making their mark in the woodworking world. Stories like our next one featuring Anne Briggs. You probably know her as Anne of all trades. She has hundreds of thousands of followers on her social media platforms, and her down-to-earth, you can do this attitude is a big reason why. Let's go to Anne's Middle Tennessee farm and spend a moment with a master. Woodworkers always have projects going. You have an amazing number of projects going, and we're looking at a bunch of them with this shot. Tell us what's happening here.
Well, I'm building a future woodworking school. I mean, not just woodworking. We're going to teach all kinds of things here, but this is kind of the dream that 8 years has started to build. And we were hoping to host this inside my completed shop, but as you can see, we still have some assembly that we need to do to get there. But that's what this will be eventually, and you know.
You're living your dream here in the hills of Middle Tennessee. You haven't always been here. You've really been all over. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, well, my parents are missionaries, so I've lived kind of all over the globe. But most recently, I lived in Seattle, and then we moved from Seattle to Nashville about 6 months ago. And so that's kind of why everything that you're seeing right now is in progress. But let's be honest, I always have 1,000 projects going no matter where or what I'm doing in life.
So you could be Anne of all projects.
That's true. And even more Anne of all unfinished projects, as you can see right now.
What project did you just fire through and it surprised you?
Actually, this chair, every time I built this with my friend Greg Pennington, who's a Windsor chair maker. A big part of why I wanted to move to Tennessee was to be closer to him and kind of get the benefit of his mentorship. But the Democratic chair, that's what this design is called. And it's amazing that you can make basically a Windsor chair in 4 days. I was so pleased that I could, start and finish something in such a short amount of time, when literally we started with the tree, and then this is what happened.
And the fact that it tells you that it's handmade.
Yeah.
It's authentic. It's it's the real thing. It just rings true. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's part of a woodworker's journey too. It's funny. Your taste changes as you start. So I think when people first get started, they're really interested in really smooth lines. They want highly sanded surfaces and stuff like that. But then the more that they understand how difficult it is to achieve clean lines with sharp tools and everything that's involved in that, they start to appreciate tool marks more. And so you start with spoon carvers will make a beautifully smooth spoon to eat off of, and then as you start to learn more about spoon carving, you're like, man, I want one that has the scoops in it, because if you can make that continuous scoop, it's a sign of skill, and it's that much more exciting to
and
have.
It's a sign that you know how to sharpen.
Yeah, definitely true. I think that sharpening is somehow like the most important thing about woodworking is knowing how to sharpen your tools well. But it's also something that is so mystifying to so many people for so many reasons. I mean, we've gotten away from knowing how to maintain and our tools and have a sharpening sharpening station all set up and ready to use. And it's like, it's not that, it's an afterthought instead of the forethought that should be had by everyone before they ever pick up a tool.
I heard that it's spatial elements, dealing with various things in space, be they sound or things, that a lot of woodworkers have in common, that they're also musicians. I know I've worked at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're a musician too.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also what kind of got me into woodworking. I started playing mandolin when I was 13, but I always said I wanted to make my own mandolin. And it was funny because I got into woodworking thinking I was going to make a mandolin, but then 7 years went by and I never made a mandolin, because once I started doing it, I was like, oh, actually, I see what is involved in instrument making, and it seems a lot more tedious than what I want to actually do. But ultimately, last year I did build my mandolin, and it was, I will have to build another one, but I was also I was like, oh yeah, this is actually way more tedious than I want to do. And my mandolin turned out amazing. I'm so pleased with it. It's a completely different craft set than actually building furniture, which I think surprises a lot of people. It's like you get into wood turning. And wood turning is a completely different thing after you get over the basics than woodworking.
Tell us about little Ann, young Ann, and some things that you now see started you toward the life that you have now.
I really have always had a proclivity for doing kind of projects, and I think that stemmed from my grandfather. He had the kind of shop where you could go into it and do anything. I was a pretty odd kid. I was, too smart for my own good, and we traveled all the time, but we lived in rural Montana, so I was always very, very different. Also, we didn't have a ton of money, and I had a very strange sense of style. So I was actually pretty badly bullied when I was a kid, and I didn't really have very many friends, and I kind of always found some kind of escape in doing projects of some kind. And whether that was, I've loved miniatures my whole life, so I got obsessed for several years with making miniatures out of clay and then baking them and using them to set up all these little, dioramas, and then I would do like stop motion videos with them and all kinds of things like that. But I always loved doing things with my hands, because I also have a few learning disabilities. I'm dyslexic, and very hard time sitting through school and even passing school for that matter. But so I always loved doing things with my hands, and things just kind of seemed to make sense when I could put my hands on it, instead of trying to read it in a book or have someone explain it to me. If I could just touch it, then I could figure it out. And so I think that, plus the fact that most of my only friends when I was a kid were animals, I always dreamed of having a farm someday, and having some kind of place where, just like I'd had at my grandpa's house, a kind of place where anything that I imagined was possible could get made. And so that's very much, I always say that this place now is what little Ann dreamed of.
Give us a little tour. This is intriguing.
Well, behind us we've got our pasture, where we pasture our animals. I'm getting some beef cows in a few weeks. We've got a couple of sheep. All the goats are hanging out in here right now because otherwise they would have been annoying us the whole time we were trying to film here. Yeah. But we've got our little inherited neighborly pig here. This is Lucy, and she's quite a character.
Well, goat milk and cheese is popular right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you milk them?
Yeah. So definitely that is their sole purpose. I always said we didn't have any pets until now we have Lucy, and she'll find a job. But every animal here has a job, and theirs is to provide milk and cheese. I also have a Jersey cow that we're in a little herd share, so you can sell the raw milk. And then the chickens are over there, and they do eggs for us, which is a nice little business to keep kind of the other feed costs down. And
yeah. So everything has a purpose.
Everything has a purpose. And another purpose here is I've got this little garden, and once construction on my big shop has completed, the garden will be much bigger. But for right now, it got us through the last few months with, groceries being a little more difficult to come by, and we're getting into fall now, so starting to plant that fall stuff and getting the last of our good tomatoes and okra and beans and whatever else happens to go. The dahlias, funny thing about those dahlias, I actually I transplanted them here from Seattle. My dad and I planted those bulbs, and I carried them in my wedding bouquet, so it's fun to see them flourishing here as well. Right. And then behind us here, we've got this monstrosity coming up. This is the future woodworking and craft school. We'll kind of take you inside. So,
would you like for me to open the door for you?
Oh, Deb, I'd love it. Thank you.
Here we go.
Actually, we're already inside and you don't even know
Oh,
it.
all right. Well, I can't open the door then.
So this right here is going to be an outdoor kitchen. So this will all be porch. This will be like a porch, and then it'll have a concrete slab poured here. I have it'll kind of service that whole area there. But so this will be where, when classes are going on, we can have meals together. We pick stuff out of the garden, bring it right over, and enjoy it right here. We'll have a big farmhouse table. And then if we walk in this door that you kindly opened for me.
Oh, excuse me.
Now we are in the machine shop. So this is where, the table saw, the jointer, the planer, the lathes, all that stuff is going to go in here.
Yeah.
And then above us, on the second floor here, that will run along this whole thing, and that'll be classroom space.
I see.
So up there we'll have room for potentially events and things, but mostly when we do regenerative farming classes, or when we have a woodworking speaker or an event or something, that'll be up there in that classroom space up there. And then if you'll just walk through this doorway here, this in here is going to be the hand tool woodworking area. So all of the benches and the shave horses and everything will be in here. And then again, but above us is more classroom space. And then over here, I had to, in retrospect, I did this a tad larger than I would have maybe done it had I realized how big those dimensions actually were. Right. But I wanted to build a machine shop that had a big enough ceiling that I could work on a semi-truck in here. So that's what we did. But what we're gonna do is the walls will be lined with like a milling machine, a lathe, all the stuff. We'll have a car lift in here, and then it'll be open enough in the middle that we'll be able to drive vehicles through so that we can, work. I have a 1953 Chevy truck, and so we'll be finish that rebuild in here. But ultimately, every time that I'm scaling and making things bigger, it's more, I don't care about money. I've never had. You either have it or you don't. And like growing up, I had none, and I was still able to, travel the world with my family and have deep relationships with people, and that's all I've ever cared about. But now I know that actually being able to scale my business gives me the opportunity to bring other people who have dreams of their own and maybe limited resources of their own, and together we can do even more. And so this school is kind of the next piece of scaling my business. It's going to have online classes available and in-person classes available. It's going to give me what I've always wanted, which is a place to bring the people that I've always wanted to learn from to me. And then I selfishly get to learn from them, but then I also get to share their story with other people. And so ultimately, as we build this is a dream in and of itself. But if this business works, it's going to give us the capital to be able to do other businesses, like open a school for kids that were just like me, that could have really benefited from having a place where they could make all that stuff and someone to guide them and to teach them at that young age so that they can get started in their journey. Because I started woodworking when I was 24. What if I'd been able to start when I was 6 or 8,
In a way, this mission is just a continuation of what your parents and you did as missionaries.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that is really special.
Yeah.
Coming up, we'll head back to Ann's farm for a lesson in carving. But first, Popular Woodworking magazine has some great tips on getting the most out of wooden hand screws. You're watching the 50th episode of the Highland Woodworker.
I'm just an average, down-to-earth woodworker. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 5. But one place I score a perfect 10 is right here, and I plan on keeping all 10. That's why I have a saw-stop table saw. And there's more. Plenty of power, superior dust collection, and absolute accuracy. These features have made it the best-selling cabinet saw in America. Let Highland Woodworking help you put a saw stop in your shop.
Meet the Bora Centipede, the lightweight and portable workshop table that supports up to 3,000 pounds, stores in a small space for tight shops, and opens into a work table to bring your work to a comfortable height. This makes the perfect companion for your track saw. Comes with X cups and hold downs to secure your work. Upgrade your shop today. Highland Woodworking stocks a wide selection of Rikon power tools, known for their innovative design and rugged durability. Highland has sold thousands of Rikon's industry-leading bandsaws with sizes to fit every woodworking need, from the compact affordable 10-inch model to competitively priced 14 and 18-inch models. Shop us also for Rikon's reliable planers, lathes, and professional low-speed grinder, all with an exceptional 5-year warranty. Rikon Power Tools. I've been using Forest products for years. You know, they're the maker of the Woodworker 2 saw blade. Gives great cuts on your table saw every time. Now I have a chop master for my miter saw. I have a dense piece of 2x2 walnut, and as you see, it cuts like butter, leaving clean cuts at 90 degrees. Forest, the cuts will make you smile every time.
Today, I want to share with you one of my favorite workshop helpers, and that's the wooden hand screw clamp. Now, these clamps are pretty simple, sort of old-fashioned, but that simplicity is sort of part of their genius. Now, a wooden hand screw clamp is really just made up of 2 wooden jaws and a couple of hand screws through some threaded dowels. They're incredibly versatile. They come in a bunch of different sizes, from teeny tiny to really big. That's a number 4 size wooden hand screw clamp, if you're wondering. But my most used size in my shop is really this number 1 size. It's kind of the best of both worlds of plenty of clamping surface and also not huge, doesn't get in the way. Part of the genius of the wooden hand screw clamp is really that the jaws are made out of wood. For one, that means they're less likely to mar your woodworking projects because it's wood on wood. And secondly, you've got a ton of clamping surface in the jaw. So that gives it a nice long reach. You can clamp wide parts. You can use it to align panels where you're gluing them up. Really a great clamp. But the thing I use wooden hand screw clamps for the most in my shop is actually in place of a vise. My workbench is my outfeed table for my table saw. Because of that, I took the vise off of it. It was just sort of getting in the way. When I do need some work holding on my workbench though, I reach for these wooden hand screw clamps. That's particularly what I use this number 4 for. Let's say you want to hold a piece on edge to, do a little hand planing. Maybe you need to hold a bunch of pieces on their edges to assemble, glue stuff up. I've got my one hand screw here that clamps firmly to the front. And I just take another one, clamp it down to the bench. That's not going anywhere. Now, not only does this work on workbenches, But with a pair of wooden hand screws, you can turn pretty much any flat surface into a workbench. Very handy when you're working on location. Now, the other thing about wooden hand screw clamps is, you guessed it, they're made out of wood. And that means you can cut them with the machines in your shop. I've modified 2 of my wooden hand screw clamps to aid in holding non-square pieces. I'll often use a wooden hand screw clamp to hold a dowel firmly while I'm cutting some joinery on it when I'm making a chair or a table. Also, because you don't need to worry about cutting into wooden hand screw clamps with your woodworking tools, I use this little one when cross-cutting things with my miter gauge on my table saw all the time. It lets you get nice and close to the blade, hold things firmly in place, and you don't need to worry about accidentally cutting into it like you would with a metal-bodied clamp. Lastly, these clamps are indispensable at the drill press. You can hold really tiny pieces nice and firmly, keep your hands out of the way of the drill bit, and keep everything nice and safe. So next time you're at your local woodworking store looking for some more clamps, take a look at the wooden hand screw clamps. They're some of the most versatile clamps out there, and they're some of my favorites. I'm Andrew with Popular Woodworking, and we'll see you next time.
When we come back, spoon carving with Ann of all trades. You're watching the 50th episode of the Highland Woodworker. Whiteside Machine Company has been in business for over 30 years, providing customers with quality router bits. Fine Woodworking magazine has declared Whiteside router bits best overall and best value when compared against 17 other brands. No matter the router application, they have the type and profile of carbide router bit you need. When you put a Whiteside router bit to work in your shop, it is guaranteed to make you smile. Well, this is the magic moment when my masterpiece, or your masterpiece, comes in contact with Masterpiece Wood Finish Oil. It just comes alive. This is a great piece of wood, and it's going to just look brilliant. Masterpiece Wood Finish causes your masterpiece.
For 35 years, Lee has manufactured the world's best joinery jigs. From our award-winning Dovetail jigs and mortise and tenon jigs, to newer innovations like router table jigs. Easily add strong, beautiful joinery to your woodworking pieces, like half-blind dovetails, box joints, mortise and tenon joints, and through dovetails. Lee, simply the easiest and most versatile router joinery jigs.
If you can't make it to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia, you can shop online at highlandwoodworking.com. They're great at getting what you want to your shop quick. Let Highland's legendary wood slicer resaw blade help make it easy for you to get great results sawing thick lumber into thinner boards. The wood slicer is designed to cut much faster, smoother, and quieter than ordinary bandsaw blades. You'll be amazed at how smooth a surface you'll get with a wood slicer. Its variable tooth pattern greatly reduces noise and vibration. Order a wood slicer from Highland Woodworking for your bandsaw today.
So I've been doing quite a bit of spoon carving lately because with the shop in the state that it's in and all my tools in storage, this is kind of the only woodworking adjacent thing that I can do.
And you don't need a table saw.
Exactly. And so I do a lot of phone calls and online meetings and stuff. So I'll often just rough out a whole bunch of blanks and then carry it around in my pocket and then whip it out and start carving anytime I need to keep my hands busy, which is great because then you've got something to give every new neighbor you meet, which we've been doing a lot of since we moved here. And also I sell them online, and then you've got a little way to kind of turn firewood into treasure, if you will. But one other really fun thing is that the firewood in Tennessee is much more exciting than the firewood in Seattle. Because, I mean, here we've got a piece of walnut that I found in Greg Pennington's yard. Just helped myself to it. And, you know, you can just basically, I mean, it's already started to split. So I figure I might as well just keep going with that. And, yeah, it's just fun because without a shop, you can still make cool stuff. And, of course, this is going to not. There we go. And, I mean, you know, sometimes you can love yourself a little more and be a tad more choosy with the firewood that you get. But this is a little curly, but it's not like we can't make that into something cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, I mean, with this, first thing that I want to do is to square it up so that I have a little better idea of what I'm working with. And that just is done with little incremental chops, starting at the bottom, taking little pieces and moving my way up.
It's interesting how squaring up is usually the first step. And
no matter what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
At this point, I can probably split away the stuff that I'm not going to use on that side as well. And aside, that dang little knot right there really didn't do me any favors, or this one here, so I guess we'll probably find our spoon right in there.
Yeah, it's a design opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Always. You always got to be on the lookout for those. Actually, when I was working at Pratt and running the woodworking program there, I highly advised everyone that the first class that they should take is spoon carving, because within spoon carving you learn everything you need to know about woodworking. You learn how to use really, really sharp tools. You have to learn how to sharpen them because you're using them in such an abrasive manner. And, you know, you're just not going to get good results without sharp tools. And so then you learn about grain strength. If I was to, you know, try to split this out and you saw this whole chunk go away, right. I know why that happened, and yeah. I can you know, plan for that happening. And so I think, yeah, spoon carving is great for that reason, because you learn all the basics without having to, you know, invest in a huge shop space or a bunch of tools and equipment that, you know, might be out of reach. But, you know, a fallen branch, a $5 hatchet, and a $25 carving knife, and you've got yourself a woodworking shop.
You know, vetting out the piece of stock and trying to see where the part is going to come from is so very important.
Oh, absolutely. Because and that's one fun thing about having, you know, a template or something that you can lay down on the wood, because then you can actually really start to play with what's going to happen as you do it. So, like with this, I like that there's this lighter bit right here, and I want that to be on the blade of the thing, so I just make sure that I kind of pivot so that's an opportunity. And then also down here, all of this is going to stay in it, and those cool colors will be there even after the spoon's done. So
yeah, it's so nice to choose your grain orientation and where the color is placed.
Yes, actually so we're good there. So now there's right here, we're going to have, as we split this away, we're going to have an opportunity for the wood to go very, very wrong. So this is kind of what I was talking about, you know, knowing what's going to happen. So I'm going to split this away, but first I need to cut a stop. So you can actually do this with an axe, so you don't have to have a saw to do this, but I'll show you how to do both.
And by a stop, you mean a place that won't let the grain dictate a run out with a split.
Exactly. So if I just went like this and just started splitting, it might stop right there, but most likely it's going to keep splitting right through where I want the spoon to stay. So again, just kind of, you know, being able to plan for what's going to happen knowing that that's the case, I will, basically create a stop. So a lot of people, when they first get started, are not super comfortable carving towards themselves, and I would not suggest it if you're not comfortable with it. So that's why there's also the option of using a saw. And then we get the opportunity here to use the designed feature of our bench.
Right.
This little stop where we can use our foot. And so one line is good, but 2 gives us an extra little safety bit here. And this is not really the ideal saw for this, let's be honest, but it's gonna work. With spoon carving, I always try not to get too fancy with my toolkit because I really want to keep it accessible for the people that are watching, because really, I'm using a free piece of firewood. My hatchet is probably the most expensive thing, but even that, I have a lot of hatchets that I got from garage sales for much cheaper. Here, let me just contort my body in a way to make this beautiful workbench work for me. There we go. And like I said, 2 lines is better than 1 because it gives us a little insurance here. So and this is a pull saw, so sometimes people who are used to Western tools have a little hard time getting used to those guys. So this one, take it here and make our first cut. And then hopefully I didn't cut too far on either one of those. No, we're still good. So yeah, that'll get us closer to where we want to go. Then we'll just take this back over here and we'll pray that the spoon protectors are with us as we take this split. Oh, well, see, look at that. It didn't even go towards us there. But this is dangerous. All right. So, well, and that's kind of convenient because now I can come in here. And that just gives us, oh, see, that's why we have our second stop to protect us from that.
Yeah, your stop worked beautifully.
Yeah, so that's usually the goal. You want it to not go where you don't want it to go, and then you can remove a whole lot of material in a hurry. And so on this one, we were pretty close actually already on here, so we're not going to split too much, but we can just, and this is where the benefit of having both-handedness comes in, because now I can still show it to you while I do this. And there's where the stop just helped us there again. And then we're gonna take a risk. Yeah, okay, we're good. But then, here, let's... One thing about carving that, especially carving with an axe, that you really want to be aware of is my axe is always doing the same thing, and I'm moving the wood. So I have my body positioned in such a way that the wood will catch it if it slips, and if the wood doesn't catch it, there's still nothing that can happen as far as my body goes. So, and it also helps to just be better at what you're doing if you're eliminating all your variables. So if I'm just looking at where material needs to be removed and just hitting there instead of moving the wood towards where I want the axe to be, I have a lot more control.
It's amazing how nicely walnut will make a sharp edge.
Oh yeah, I love that. And then we can just fix that inside edge. Oh, well, let's see here. It's so nice on that side. Actually, I'm going to change my mind a little bit right here. Oh, you have it. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to redraw this a little bit and then start from this side, because then we can remove a little bit more material from that side. Whoop. Which all that is pretty arbitrary. It becomes what it wants to become regardless of the lines that we draw.
That's true.
When I'm removing a bunch of material, just like if you were doing this with a draw knife or anything else, you want to have the knife kind of pointed up so that it's making a slicing motion. All the strength's coming from my shoulder, and I am thinking about, where my knife is going to go. What would happen if my knife or if my wood disappeared? And so got my body off to the side there so that I.
Orientation to your work is so important.
So what I'm doing right now is called the pull cut. This one is the power cut. That's where you get all your leverage. But even then, I'm cutting off the corners first, and then taking the material from the middle, because that helps you to remove more material without as much effort. What I'm doing now is called a scissor cut, or some people have other names for all of these, I'm sure. But we're basically using the knife as a scissor, and our control comes from our thumb pushing the hilt of the knife there. And it's not a way to remove a lot of material, but it's a great way to do details and to get, this is right, what I'm carving right now is probably the hardest part for most people in any spoon carving, because the angle changes. Because angle changes from here to here, the wood grain. So for right here, I have to cut downhill, and then all of a sudden I'm cutting uphill. Yeah. So I have to come back.
Because you're going from end grain
yep.
into face grain.
Exactly. And so that's I think that's one of the things that you can learn from spoon carving. This is also, it's funny, everyone always, when you're a kid, your grandpa or whoever always tells you never cut towards yourself. This is actually one of the safest cuts that you can do once you understand how to keep yourself safe. You've got your elbows tucked so the knife can't slip. You're cutting towards the hilt here, and you're controlling it with this hand. And also, even if my hand does slip, if the wood disappears, I can't poke myself because the knife's not pointed towards myself, and I can only go as far as my elbow will allow.
Yeah.
But with this, the funny thing is, this is how most people carve with this cut, and this is actually the most dangerous cut that there is, because people forget where the tip of their knife is, and that little things like that happen.
So, where are you now?
I'm getting closer. As you can see, I've still got a lot of fatness, and that's also because of my shoddy axe work. But ultimately what I'll do is just keep whittling it away. I'll use these same knife cuts. Like I said, the power cut is where we remove a lot of material.
Yeah.
Then we've got the pull cut, which allows us to have a lot of control and detail. And so we'll just, all these long lines, we'll refine them with this cut. And then, you know, anything, all of these down here where it's like the transition points, we'll use the scissor cut for that.
All right.
We'll use what's called the potato peeler cut, which you put the hand in here, and then this is the motion that you make there. And
Right.
we can use that for things like this down here for details, like at the end of it, we'll, you know, do our little details there. But again, because for this cut to be safe, it only has a little, very small range of travel. So this is not going to be something where you remove a bunch of bulk material. But then, you know, keep yourself safe and you get some nice details and chamfers or however you want to call it, on your piece. And yeah, so then just from there, it's, you know, you take down the two edges and then you meet in the middle and then you work on that transition. And yeah, this right here is always the hardest part for everyone, because that grain transition that we're talking about. But you know, you just work it down, find your spot, meet in that middle, and again, the more you can remove with the axe up front, the less you have to do once you're at this point. But we're getting there. We've got the basic shape.
Well, let me tell you, Anne, of all trades, one of your greatest trades is a teacher.
Well, thank you.
You are an outstanding teacher.
I appreciate that.
And, you know, the important thing is for people to have fun with their
Absolutely.
woodworking.
Yes.
Woodworkers, it's no secret that I'm a chair maker, but every once in a while I'm called upon to cut some dovetails, and everybody expects the dovetails to be as nice as my work on chairs. But I found a secret, and I'm going to share it with you today. That secret is the David Barron Magnetic Saw Guide. Yes, so when I cut dovetails, I have a kind of secret sauce, if you will, with this saw guide. What it does is it helps me to cut the angle. It's got a magnet right here and some kind of slippery material on top of it that is replaceable. Now, mine has been used a lot in the last few years, and it's kind of scuffed up, but that really will not inhibit it doing what it needs to do. So doing it a little backwards here to show you exactly how to hold it, but if I take the saw and I put it right against the blade, then it's got it in position, and all I have to do is cut. And you want to go kind of light with the saw itself. And as you know, this saw cuts on a pull stroke. So I'm cutting along, and I want to cut down to my depth line. And the saw will help me track and keep the cut straight. All right. Now, let's see what kind of cut we got. Look how straight that cut is. That is just tremendous. Now, you're probably asking, can I do it with a saw that I have? Well, I happen to have a Japanese saw here, and its depth of cut is about 2 inches. So that means to clear the guide here, this is about 1 1/8 inches from top to bottom. I can cut a fairly deep dovetail, as you saw. Well, so you need a saw that will have over 1 1/8 inches of cut. This one is a bad axe saw that cuts about 2 3/8 of an inch deep. So plenty of room for a nice thick dovetail or a nice deep dovetail for this saw. Now, here's a little Lee Nielsen, and it's not the tapered variety, but it's this one is about 1 inch and 5/8. So it seems like you couldn't cut one that was real deep, but let me show you how well this works. All right, I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to cut this one. All right, so. So I'm going to cut till I'm at full depth here. All right, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close. All right, so right there, I've arrived at full depth. Now, what I have is I can, since everything is tracking so straight, I can come back and I can finish my cut. Now, that is a very nice straight cut. You can do it too and improve your dovetails with a secret weapon. And that secret weapon is the David Barron Magnetic Saw Guide. And as you can see, it comes in 5 different ratios or angles, plus a 90-degree and a 45-degree. If you're like me and you don't cut a lot of dovetails, or you cut a whole lot of them, and you want the secret sauce of dovetail cutting, get a David Barron Magnetic Saw Guide.
Improve your woodworking experience. Sign up for Wood News Online, a monthly newsletter showcasing the latest news, tips, and classes Highland Woodworking has to offer. By signing up, you'll receive the latest episode of the Highland Woodworker, special store promotions, and Wood News Online delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today.
Well, that's all the time we have left for this, our 50th episode of the Highland Woodworker. Thank you so much for celebrating this milestone with us, and don't forget to check us out on our social media platforms. Until next time, I'm Charles Brock, and I'm a Highland Woodworker.